The Billionaire's Secret Island Part 3. Chapter 10, The Fake Wedding. The sun rose over the private island like it had been scheduled by a stylist, too perfect, too golden, every cloud positioned like a prop in a royal romance. The ocean shimmered like champagne poured across glass. And on the southern cliff, where waves crashed against volcanic rock and orchids bloomed wild and unruly, an altar had been built overnight. It wasn't large. It wasn't gaudy. But it was impossibly beautiful. Ivory silk draped from a frame of polished teak. White petals formed a path carved into the grass, flanked by dozens of flickering pillar candles, useless in daylight, but designed for drama. The chairs were ghost white lucite. Empty. Because this wedding wasn't for guests. It was for eyes. The cameras. And the enemies watching. Inside the dressing suite of the cliffside villa, Isla sat in front of an antique vanity, staring at her reflection through a veil of anxiety. She wore a gown that belonged in a dream, vintage Valentino, cream satin overlaid with delicate floral lace. The neckline dipped dangerously low, framed with pearl-threaded straps that trailed down her arms like a whisper. Her hair had been swept into a crown of loose waves, pinned with tiny pearl combs. Her lips were a soft, sinful rose. Her eyes lined with quiet defiance. She looked like a bride. But she didn't feel like one. Not exactly. Behind her, the door creaked open. Isla didn't have to look to know it was Serena, Nico's private assistant, or, more accurately, his personal crisis manager. She was sharp. Efficient. Always in black. And she did not smile. 10 minutes, Serena said. Are you ready? Isla turned slowly. No. Serena didn't blink. That's irrelevant. I'm not marrying him. Serena approached, fixing the edge of Isla's veil with a feather-light touch. It's a ceremony, Miss Cruz. The paperwork is unfiled. The vows are scripted. The press release has already been sent. The visuals are what matter. And what exactly are we visualizing? That Mr. De Rossi is no longer on the market. And that anyone who tries to touch you will suffer the consequences. Isla exhaled. So I'm bait. Serena tilted her head, eyes assessing. No. You're the shield. Minutes later, she stood at the top of the cliff path, heart pounding. The music started. A haunting, instrumental arrangement, violins over soft piano, filled the air. The path was empty except for Nico. Standing beneath the archway in a black-on-black tuxedo. No tie. Just a tailored silhouette, a single white rose in his lapel, and the most unreadable expression she'd ever seen. Not cold. Not smug. Just, waiting. Their eyes locked. He didn't smile. Neither did she. But she walked toward him anyway. Each step felt like an act of betrayal against her old life. The girl who lived in a wetsuit. The girl who wanted quiet reef dives and clean data. The girl who never kissed men with secrets and scars and diamond cuffs. But that girl had been washed away with the tide. Isla reached the altar. Nico stepped forward. No officiant. Just Serena, holding a small leather-bound script in the background, reading lines in a voice as flat as silk. Do you, Nico De Rossi, vow to protect Isla Cruz until this arrangement is no longer required? I do. His voice was deep. Certain. But quiet. Like a secret promise. Do you, Isla Cruz, vow to stand by Nico De Rossi until this arrangement is no longer required? She hesitated. Her lips parted. Her throat tightened. Then. I do. Not a whisper. Not a shout. But the words cut through the wind like a flare. Serena closed the book. The ring, she said. Nico pulled a ring from his pocket. Not the same one from the deal. A different one. Thinner. Platinum. A single square diamond. He slid it onto her finger without asking. She looked down. It fit perfectly. And now Serena said, "You may kiss the bride." It was a joke. A signal to the world. A camera drone hovered nearby, ready to capture the perfect illusion. But the moment stretched. Longer. Deeper. Isla looked up at him. His hand cupped her face. Gently. As if asking, not taking. Then, he kissed her. It wasn't a show. It wasn't for the cameras. It wasn't even about safety anymore. His lips were warm. Certain. Needing. The kind of kiss that said, "This might be fake, but you are real." Her fingers curled into his lapel without thinking. She kissed him back, slow at first, then deeper, like she was falling off the edge of the cliff with nothing to hold but him. The ocean roared behind them. Somewhere, the drone camera buzzed. But for once, she didn't care. Because in that kiss was something terrifying. Something true. They pulled apart, breathless. She looked at him, wide-eyed. And Nico whispered, just for her. "They're watching. Smile." So she did. But inside, her heart was in free fall. Because she could lie to the cameras. She could lie to the world. But she couldn't lie to herself anymore. That kiss had meant something. And she didn't know if that was her biggest mistake yet. Chapter 11, The Secret Tunnel. The villa was too quiet. Isla stood barefoot on the cool marble floor of the master suite, wrapped in a silk robe she had unpacked, staring out the glass wall at the darkened ocean. The wedding had ended hours ago. The cameras were gone. The music had faded. Even the flickering candles on the altar had burned themselves out. And Nico. He had vanished. No note. No explanation. Just a vague, "I have something to handle," whispered into her ear after the last photo was taken. She hadn't seen him since. Now it was just her and the walls. She wandered the hallways barefoot, too restless to sleep. The villa, Nico's private cliffside estate, was a labyrinth of polished stone and glass, with hidden doors and softly lit rooms that seemed more for display than for living. Every item was curated. Every book unopened. Every painting, slightly too meaningful. She found herself drawn to one. A seascape. Bold strokes. A storm building over the ocean. But there, in the corner of the frame, almost lost in the shadows, a door. Open. Stairs descending. She tilted her head. She hadn't noticed it before. Hadn't noticed the slight groove in the stone wall just beneath it. Isla reached out and pressed her palm against the wall. Nothing. Then, almost by instinct, she pressed her fingers to the lower edge of the painting's frame. There was a click. And the wall slid open. It wasn't dramatic. Just a silent shift of air and stone. A cool draft hit her ankles. She stepped back. But only for a second. Then, with her heart thudding, she stepped inside. The tunnel was narrow and dark, carved from the volcanic rock beneath the villa. It smelled faintly of salt and old secrets. The walls were smooth, as if polished by time or design. She followed the faint path downward, lit only by occasional flickering lead strips embedded in the rock. She had no idea how long she walked. Maybe 5 minutes. Maybe 20. Then the tunnel opened. Into a room. Hidden. Silent. A study. Larger than any she'd seen above ground, lined with thick wooden shelves, a long oak desk, antique lamps glowing golden, and a table covered in maps, documents, and unmarked folders. The air felt weighted. As if something lived here, even in silence. Isla stepped in slowly, her fingers brushing the edge of the desk. The map on top was of the Indian Ocean. Red pins. Blue strings. And her island, Santa Isla de Luz, circled in black ink. She stared at it. And then her eyes caught the edge of a folder. Tucked under a pile of handwritten notes. The corner of it bent. She reached for it. Opened it. And stopped breathing. Inside, her photo. Not the one from the wedding. Not one she'd ever seen. She looked younger. Standing outside her university lab. Wearing her old UCLA hoodie. Hair pulled into a messy bun. Candid. Below it, her full name. Isla Carmen Cruz. Date of birth. Place of birth. Academic history. Employment. Known addresses. Phone numbers. And, at the very bottom. No known affiliations. Low threat. Possibly useful. Monitor. The room spun. She stepped back, eyes wide, bile rising in her throat. There was a second folder beneath hers. She opened it with shaking hands. This one was empty except for a handwritten page. A journal entry. Nico's handwriting. She recognized the way he curled his RS, the slight slant of the ink. It read. She wasn't supposed to matter. But she does. She saw me when I was trying not to be seen. The water should have taken me. But she didn't let it. I don't know what to do with that. Her chest tightened. Her fingers clenched around the page. She turned to leave. But a noise stopped her. A soft click, somewhere behind her. She whipped around. But the tunnel was empty. Still, she ran. Back through the tunnel, up the stairs, out the hidden door, slamming it shut behind her and pressing her back to the wall. Her breath came fast. Her hands were cold. He'd been watching her. Before the reef. Before the rescue. She wasn't an accident. And whatever this was. It hadn't started with fate. It had started with surveillance. She didn't sleep that night. Not because she couldn't. But because she was afraid of what she'd see behind her eyes. The maps. The photos. The file. Her name. Written in his hand. Chapter 12, The Kiss and the Slap. It was almost dawn when Isla found him. She didn't knock. She didn't announce herself. She just walked into his office like she belonged there, because after last night, she no longer cared if she didn't. The hidden tunnel had led her here. The photos. The files. The map. Her name. Everything she needed to know had been buried beneath the villa, and so had the truth. Now she was ready to dig it up. Nico sat alone behind a massive desk of matte black stone. No suit. No guards. No performance. Just a black t-shirt stretched across his shoulders, sleeves rolled up, forearms braced against a glass of untouched whiskey. He didn't look surprised to see her. Not even a little. I wondered when you'd find it, he said quietly. Isla didn't speak. She walked to the desk and dropped the file in front of him. It landed like a threat. He didn't flinch. Want to explain, she said. His voice stayed calm. I was watching the island. Not you. Try again. I wasn't watching for you, Isla. She crossed her arms. But you had my name. My face. You were tracking me. He leaned back in his chair. I was tracking everything on that reef. You just happened to be part of it. You wrote that I was possibly useful. Her voice cracked. Is that what I am to you? A utility? Nico exhaled slowly. I wrote that, before I knew you. Before you what? Manipulated me into fake marriage and kissed me in front of cameras. Before you let your real fiancé walk into a room and humiliate me in front of everyone. I broke that engagement months ago. Then why didn't you tell me? He stood now, sudden, fast. Because everything with you happened too fast. The room went quiet. He stepped around the desk, walked toward her slowly. There was no tuxedo now, no silk smile. Just a man with tired eyes and too many scars. I had files on you, yes. I knew your face. But I didn't know what it would feel like when you pulled me out of the water. I didn't know what it would mean when you looked at me like I was worth saving. She scoffed. That's convenient. It was never supposed to go this far. But it did. Yes. And now I don't know what's real. His voice dropped. That makes two of us. She looked at him. Really looked at him. And hated that she still wanted him. Even now. Even after everything. Because he hadn't tried to deny it. Or lie. Or turn it into a game. He'd just stood there. Letting her look. Letting her hurt. And then he said the last thing she expected. Hit me. What? I deserve it. So do it. She stared at him. Then raised her hand. And slapped him. The sound was sharp. Not theatrical. Real. His head turned slightly from the impact, but he didn't react. Didn't touch his cheek. Just blinked. Once. I hated you, she whispered. I know. I still might. I know that too. Her hand trembled. And then, somehow, it wasn't a slap anymore. It was a kiss. It happened so fast, she didn't even realize she'd moved. But suddenly her fingers were in his hair, and his hands were gripping her waist, and their mouths met like fire catching silk, hot, fast, uncontrollable. She kissed him like she wanted to destroy him. And he kissed her like she already had. There was no restraint this time. No pretending. No for the cameras. Just want. Just hunger. Just finally. His back hit the edge of the desk. She climbed up without thinking, the file pushed to the floor, forgotten. Their bodies pressed together, breath short, heartbeats loud. I hate you, she gasped. Good, he whispered. Then we're even. They didn't undress. Not yet. They kissed like people who couldn't decide whether they were in love or at war. And maybe they didn't need to decide. Because for once, there was no script. No arrangement. No fake roles. Just them. Raw and reckless. Minutes passed. Or maybe hours. When they finally broke apart, Isla was still in his lap, forehead resting against his. Their breathing had slowed, but not by much. His hand traced the line of her back. Hesitant now. Gentle. And when he spoke, it was so quiet she almost missed it. You weren't supposed to be in any of this. She lifted her head. And now? He met her eyes. And for once, there was no defense. No calculation. Just one word. Now, I don't know how to let you go. She didn't answer. Because she didn't know if she wanted him to. Chapter 13, Kidnapped. The morning was deceptively beautiful. Light spilled across the cliffs in sheets of gold, shimmering over the sea like nothing had changed. The world looked soft, calm, untouched. But something had shifted. Isla felt it. She couldn't name it, but it pulsed at the edge of her thoughts like a low vibration, as if the air itself was holding its breath. She stood on the balcony outside the villa's upper suite, wrapped in a soft linen robe. Coffee steamed gently in her hands, untouched. She hadn't seen Nico since the night before. Since the slap. Since the kiss. Since everything she thought she understood collapsed beneath her. There were footsteps behind her. She turned, expecting him. It wasn't. It was Serena. Hair as sharp as ever. Eyes unreadable. Morning, she said. Isla didn't smile. You don't do small talk. Serena offered the faintest shrug. You're needed in the library. Why? He wants you there. Isla arched a brow. He knows how to knock. Serena didn't reply. Just turned and walked away. Isla followed. The villa felt too empty as she walked. The staff, always discreet, were now invisible. No guards. No chefs. No drivers. No whispers. It was like the building had swallowed them whole. As she passed the corridor by the service wing, she paused. Something moved. Too fast. Too close. Before she could speak, arms. Hands. A cloth pressed to her mouth. The smell, chemical, sharp, cold. She tried to scream. She couldn't. Everything went black. She woke to cold. Not air-conditioned villa cold. But damp, metallic, underground cold. Isla blinked slowly. Her wrists were bound behind her. She was sitting in a chair, upright, in a windowless room made of stone. A single bulb swung above her like an accusation. Her mouth was dry. Her head pounded. She swallowed, hard. Then a voice. Male. Calm. Accented. Italian. She's awake. Footsteps. And then. A man stepped into the light. Older. Impeccable dressed. Charcoal suit. Shiny shoes. Skin the color of old bronze. Hair silvered at the temples. His eyes, glacial blue, held no emotion at all. He looked at her the way a collector might look at a painting. Something acquired. Nothing more. You must be Isla Cruz. She didn't answer. He smiled faintly. I am Matteo Esposito. Nico and I go back a long way. Still, she said nothing. Loyal, he murmured. I admire that. He stepped closer. This is not personal. Your leverage. Nothing more. Then he turned, and left. Miles away, Nico De Rossi stood at the edge of the villa's helipad, his phone pressed to his ear, one hand curled into a fist. The voice on the other end was calm. Effortless, cruel. Matteo. We have her. She is unharmed, for now. Nico's jaw clenched. You know what I want, Nico. Nico didn't speak. Sign the truce. Give up the shipping lane through Tangier. Step back from Barcelona. Announce retirement, effective immediately. And she walks free. Nico's silence was cold and violent. If you hesitate, we will send her back to you in pieces. Click. The phone slid from his fingers. He didn't curse. He didn't scream. He just stared at the horizon, as the wind lifted his hair, and rage poured through him like wildfire. He turned to Serena, who had been watching from a distance. They took her. Serena nodded once. Matteo. Nico's voice was low. He wants me out. Permanently. Do you want to be out? A long pause. Then. I want her back. Back in the stone room, Isla sat alone. She was no longer scared. She was furious. This wasn't about fear. Not anymore. This was about the fact that everything she had felt might have been real. And now someone wanted to use her like a bargaining chip. A pawn. She wasn't a pawn. Not anymore. Her eyes lifted to the door. And she waited. For him. For the man who had gotten her into this. And maybe, the only one who could get her out. That's the end of this part, but trust me, the next one is even more thrilling. We drop fresh episodes every day, so don't miss out. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned, you won't want to miss what's coming next.
Thanks for listening to Billionaire Romance Stories, where love meets luxury in the most unexpected places. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. We love hearing your favorite twists and favorite theories. And don't forget to ring that bell, because in this world of yachts, secrets, and luxurious romance, the next story is always one click away.